Now, when drawing cartoon people, proportions aren't really that important. In fact, you can throw all the rules completely out of the window and draw people with the most bizarrely shaped proportions to suit the characters that you're trying to draw. But let's remember our definition of what a cartoon is. It's a simple, two-dimensional drawing. The classic proportions of ancient Greece and Rome were of 9 head heights, so that's like placing 9 heads on top of each other to make the height of a body, and the top one will be the head. The classic body proportions set out by the ancient Greeks and the Romans is 9 heads in the total height of the body, like this statue of Augustus Caesar. Now, their statues tended to be of gods, emperors and heroes, and they were trying to impress the plebs and their enemies. Superman and other modern heroes tend to be on the 9 heads proportion scale too, but we mortal adults are generally about 8 heads high. So let's recap on this 8:1 proportion. The 1 is the head, and we have kind of 8 heads going into the whole body. So on this top one here, this line is resting roughly on the chin, and the shoulders here are pretty much halfway. Now, don't worry about this is all going to be on the PDF sheet as well. The nipples are roughly about here, and the belly button is roughly here. And the elbow. On the central line here we got the hip and the waist, and just below we have the crotch, or crotch, I think crotch is, spelling mistake. Crotch, I think, is the proper term. And then we'll come to this line here where we have the bottom of the knees. And then here there's going to be ankles and sole of foot. Now I'm going to work with this male, which is 8 units high. So there's 8 of these heads. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this will be the midpoint here, and that's kind of around which the body kind of folds. So this is where the legs will come out, and in real femur bones they kind of stick out sideways and go down like that. And then you're going to have the knee about there. So we can kind of put the crotch or crutch around about there and build a kind of very simple sort of triangular block there. Now the head, you're going to want to have the neck comes down to about halfway, and then straight across for the shoulders. And then we're going to want this kind of body cavity coming down there, and that's where that ball joint is going to be. So the shoulders are going to hang from there. The elbows will be on this midpoint here, which is roughly where the belly button is also going to be. As a kind of rule of thumb, you've also kind of got the nipples round about there, belly button there, sort of the folding point there, but the actual crotch will come a bit lower. Then we're going to have legs coming down, and you can have the ankles and kind of triangular feet at the bottom. Now let's do something with this person. Let's give them some ears and a face and some hair. So now the hair is a bit thicker and kind of lies on top of that kind of 1/8 head height. Male necks are sort of generally quite thick, so we can bring that down to there, and then you're going to get the shoulders kind of coming down to there and then around and going around. So this isn't kind of life study, it's a cartoon version of life study. Okay. So now think about where your belly button lies, and the belt is going to be a bit below. So let's put a belt in there. which means we can then bring the kind of t-shirt and tuck it in there. That's where the elbow is going to be. I haven't done the hands. Let's bring this down to about the same distance, and that's where the wrist is going to be. So the thumb will stick out, and roughly the hand, so the wrist it's all kind of is about here. Okay, so the thumb is going to be coming out there, and stand up yourself and actually see where the tips of your fingers, they come right down quite a long way to your thigh. So we can bring the kind of t-shirt down to about there, just above the wrist, and we can draw in the hand, touching there. And then the trousers or pants, in the UK we say trousers, and here's the crutch here, so we can bring that in there and down to there. And put some shoes on to make it look steady, and that kind of looks roughly like a man. Now our superhero or our Greek god is a little different, but kind of similar. So we can bring the neck down, and we're going to get the shoulders, but they're going to be much broader shoulders. And so this is 9, so halfway here, this is where that balance point is going to be. So we can kind of build that triangular crotch point kind of there, and it's going to have a much bigger, broader kind of box. And there's the ball joint in the middle. Here will come the femur joints coming down to the knee about there. And I'm making the legs splayed a little bit here, because otherwise he's going to fall over basically. And he'll have much bigger hips. And also he's probably going to want to stand up in more of a kind of a hero pose like that. So those will be the elbows and the shoulders. And we're going to get the knees there as well, and see what happens when we build this up. Now he's going to have a much more square kind of jaw like that, and he's going to have a little kind of curl in his forehead, and kind of boxy hairstyle, and his neck is just going to carry on basically. This enormous great thick neck. And we can come across on the shoulders, and then build these great big round shoulder kind of muscles. And these huge muscles will be sort of coming in like around the elbows, and these enormous muscles. So, and you're going to have these enormous pectoral muscles, which will be coming down there. So we sort of said that so this is the midpoint, and so the belly button is going to be round about there. So his belt is going to be a little bit below, and then let's work out what's going to happen with his thighs. He's going to have these great muscular thighs, and they will kind of come to there, around the knees, big strong legs. So he's going to be wearing underpants like any good superhero. And we can bring his arms in there. And we can do something like that, where he's holding on with his knuckles. And then we're going to want, I think he's only got 4 toes there, only a big toe, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that gives you an idea of this kind of giant superhero that is sort of standing over, but he has this quite small head really. And this is how we're going to work out those proportions. Now a woman is going to be almost identical to this, so that is going to be the kind of the fold over point. And so if we build this triangular pelvis, this is again where the so this will be sort of halfway down here will be the the knees, and then we're going to have the feet at the bottom. Now we want to come down to about halfway along there for the shoulders, and she's not quite so wide as the man. Man has much broader shoulders, and we can bring the elbows there to where the belly button is going to be. This will be the kind of line of the nipples generally. I mean, things shape and move around, and these are going to be round about where the wrists are going to be, and then touching the side there, so we can kind of build this box there with the ball joint in the middle. Now her neck will come down here, and then her shoulders will come around that way. So I'm just going to put a scoop neck across there to go with the shoulders, and so from the armpits she'll sort of come around to about there. There's the tummy button. Let's say she's got a belt on as well. It's going to be about there. So we can bring the waist there, and then her hips are going to come around down to the knees. Let's give her kind of tight-fitting pants, trousers, like that, and they'll come, so she'll be a bit there, so we can bring her sleeves to about there if we like, so that then her arms will be, her hands rather, will be round about there. I haven't given her a face. And then she's going to want to have shoes of some description, and we can just kind of do that. And that gives you a kind of a rough idea of an average kind of woman. These are all very, very average, and that's the whole point. Is from here you can build larger heads, and you can rearrange proportions if you are doing cartoons. Now a 5 to 10 year old, again, we're going to have that kind of midpoint about there, so we can kind of come down, do this whole thing. I can speed this up now, bring that down to about halfway, and of course they're going to be narrower. They're not kind of as wide. This is a male, it hasn't got such broad shoulders, and not quite such a wide neck. Put that box in again. Let's do this. So that's roughly where the belly button is going to be, and so we can kind of come down here to where the t-shirt is going to finish. Let's have a belt. The crutch is going to be round about there, and you can see I'm kind of speeding up a bit now because I'm getting the sort of feel for these proportions. And it's sort of similar proportions, but just smaller, really. But as you get younger, the crutch is going to get lower, and this folding over point, as I'm calling it, and also the shoulders are getting higher. This folding over point is getting lower down, so which is why sort of toddlers tend to fall over quite a lot, because they're a bit over balanced on the top. And again, so they're going to stick out like that a bit with the knees there, and hands, and also their heads are getting much smaller, but their eyes are getting a little bit wider apart, and also a bit lower down in the head. Also their feet are a little bit bigger, a bit like puppies. And then when we come to a toddler, then again that kind of weight, it should be there, shouldn't it? It should be the fold over point, but it's kind of much more down here, and that kind of box is right up on the shoulders, and the legs are going to be there. If they had a belt, it would be there. It's quite a difference in the head here as well, because it's all kind of cranium rather than the face kind of lengthens as you get older. If we take this kind of central line here, then by 15, the eyes will be kind of much more Whereas at 1 year, it's going to be much more sort of down here below that central line. This is very, very rough proportions for cartoon people. If you want to get serious and do life drawing, then you've really got to start, kind of looking at people and measuring them and really working out what's going on. But this gives you something to get going on. You can print these sheets out and you can play with it as much as you like. Just play around and see how you get on working out these proportions.
So I think this is actually an interesting point where cartoons kind of split into two halves. On one hand, you can draw quite realistic people following these realistic proportions, because remember, a cartoon is just a two-dimensional drawing. It doesn't mean that it has to, have a big head and a small body. It can be really quite realistic. Or alternatively, you can go to the other side where you can have huge heads and tiny bodies, or the other way around, or arms that stretch out forever, in which case you can forget most of these proportions. But I think it's good to spend a bit of time just playing with it, because the work that you do on that will be of benefit in the end when you come to create more bizarre characters. You may also find it's a benefit to go and find a group locally who are doing live classes. You may never have done live classes before. It can be a little daunting to start off with, but everybody's had to start somewhere. And I think most live classes are really quite welcoming of new people and very, very helpful and nurturing too. I know it's a little bit unnerving the first time you go to a live class to find a naked person in the room to draw, but you do get over that quite quickly. Now, of course, you may be living miles from anywhere that has live classes, so get yourself a good anatomy book. This is the Dorling Kindersley Anatomy for Artists, which I think is really good. And I'm sure there are many, many other good books out there. Go down to your library, if you've got one locally, see what they've got. And always remember that the librarian can check what's in the back and get things brought in from other libraries and things like that. So go and have a look on the catalogue. Have a look at lots of anatomy books. And have a look at lots of other books to see how other artists do life drawing, because you'll find some little technique in there along the way.